Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode. Hey, we got a great one for you today. Well, we're going to be doing something that really should have been done 20 years ago when this piece of dreck and absolute garbage came out. But today we're going to be taking the book Program to Kill by the author Dave McGowan, and we're going to, well, basically be throwing it where it belongs, right into the fucking garbage. So, today is going to be a great takedown of this absolute piece of dreck. Been looking forward to this one for a while. And I still can't believe people actually still use this book as a primary source of information to help understand the world. This is a very sick book. It's a very strange book. It's a book actually that I once believed in whole hog, and we'll tell that story in a little bit. But before I get into today's episode, I just want to say thanks everybody. We got 26 people watching. That no doubt's going to go up. And I want to regale you with a great Thanksgiving meme that my friends at the Sons of Sam discussion page came up with today. So let's just take a look at this. So, hi, I'm Manny Grossman, world-renowned expert on Son of Sam, and the palest, most milk-belly white gardener you have ever seen. Sometimes when I'm doing gardening videos in clothes that appear way too clean to be a gardener's, I can succumb to offensive odors. Vagisil helps prevent odors. Not only has it saved my business from clients being put off by my offensive musk, it has saved my relationship. Don't be a moron. Try Vagisil today. You won't regret it. So, just want to thank my friends over at Sons of Sam discussion page for that meme. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. Like, this is what these people spent. That actually took time to put together. I mean, I'm not making memes about you guys. This is like I'm just living my life. So we're gonna be hitting Program to Kill today. I got a devastating takedown. Of course, doing it in our style that we always do, which is edutainment. We're gonna educate you and hopefully entertain you. And what are we gonna be using as our sources of information? Well, actual primary sources, the only sources that matter, the only sources that actually mean anything in the real world. If you're still a researcher and you're like still working out of books and newspapers, 2004 called it wants its paradigm back. Yo, we're in a new day. Maybe you haven't woken up to that fact. Mainly the new day brought in by the power of our video series. This video series, of course, broke the Son of Sam case. We came up with a third way. We got out of course, the official explanation of the talking dog. We got out of the unofficial explanation, which was the cult, and we showed you the actual truth of the matter. And so, and the way we do it is using actual primary sources. We don't use newspapers. I mean, it's ridiculous. Newspapers are they're like third-hand information. I used to be a newspaper reporter. I know how this goes. Articles are written by people who are fallible, who get their information from other people, who may be getting their information from other people. And it's a big, huge game of telephone. It just absolutely means nothing. So anyhow, you guys still seeing me out there in the chat? I'm noticing like that the chat is frozen. Everything is. You guys still seeing me? Hopefully you guys still are. And yeah, I think it was just on my end. Something was frozen. So anyway, so yeah, newspaper research is like for the absolute lowest forms of life there are out there. If anyone is still showing you newspapers and books as like their primary source, what you have to do is you have to actually do what we did, which was go to the actual people involved, the friends of the people involved, the actual police reports. And so that's what we're going to be doing today with Program to Kill. We're going to be taking down the Son of Sam information in this book piece by piece, and we're going to be doing it, showing you the actual evidence involved. So, it's great if you still believe in this book. Like now, if this is your guidebook of the world, yeah, everything comes from MK Ultra. I mean, if that's the world you want to live in, that's great. What we're doing today obviously isn't going to convince you. So you might as well tune away now, because you're going to be seeing probably about an hour and a half of actual real evidence that might cause some cognitive dissonance in your brain, because after today's show, there's no way that anyone can go back and ignore what we did. I mean, granted, it's going to happen, but this historical record will exist, and hopefully will exist into the future, and hopefully will people will see this before they go and spend money on this 20-year-old book that has so many errors in it. I mean, at least in terms of Son of Sam, that you can't even believe it. So, of course, what are we doing today? We're taking down Program to Kill. And, of course, in our thumbnail, we're calling this the Conspiratard's Bible. And that the Conspiratard Maniac was, of course, coined by my friend Nicholas Schreck in our famous interview, which has now been seen almost 10,000 times, about conspiracy mania, losing yourself into these stupid theories that just lead nowhere. So we're looking at this book, Program to Kill, which, of course, Maury Terry is behind in a sense, and we're going to talk about that. And I'm looking down on the whole process over there on the left, and Berkowitz is sneakily skulking out from behind my shoulder, laughing at the whole affair, because he knows how stupid this is. After all, we're going to see in today's show how Berkowitz denied the cult theory in 1980. And he denies the cult theory now. And of course, that those two periods are bookends of this ridiculous period where people actually thought there was a cult. And of course, there's Maxie front and center, taking a bite out of the bullshit. So anyway, guys, we have quite a bit to do today. Let's get right to it, shall we? All right. So let me just get the chat back here so I can see what people are saying. I'm expecting a lot of trolls today, and that's fine. Make yourselves known. I actually want to debate on this. I want to see people who still believe in this book. I want to see like how you justify that as we go along. Okay. All right. So let's carry on. So, of course, Program to Kill, very famous book in conspiracy literature, one of the, quote, Bibles of the Conspiratard Maniac. They love this book. It came out in 2004, author named David McGowan, who had already written books such as Weird Scenes from Laurel Canyon. I mean, this guy was like a major conspiracy theorist back in the day. And of course, he got the name Program to Kill from, well, I mean, it's a common saying, of course, but Berkowitz in the Borelli letter, which we see this excerpt from the bottom, used that term, that he was programmed to kill. And of course, that gets all the conspiracy theorists hot and bothered. Programmed. He was programmed. That means it's Berkowitz admitting he was an MK Ultra subject. Yes, Berkowitz was MK Ultra. He was. Where's your actual proof of that? Where's your documentation of that? Where's the person who entered him into that MK Ultra system? Where's his documents and papers as they followed him through the MK Ultra system, and so on and so forth? Yeah. Hold on one second. Oh God, hold on. I'm getting like all sorts. So if you guys can't hear me, just let me know in the chat. So basically, this book is like it's the politics of serial murder, right? And the basic thesis of this book is that serial murder and the serial murder phenomenon of the 1970s, mainly of the 1970s and 80s. And I do admit that that's when the serial murderer was getting the most airplay and all sorts of stuff like that. And so it would seem like it was a coordinated thing via the media. And that might be true, because after all, the media wants to sell newspapers. And the 70s and 80s were a salacious time of when gossip and tabloid journalism and satanic panic was all coming together in this rotten mix. And so, you know, all of a sudden you started getting researchers like Mae Brussel, right? MMB, more Mae bullshit, right? She's talking. One day I'm going to do a takedown of her expose of Son of Sam. It's absolute garbage. The day of the arrest of Berkowitz, she's talking about him being MK Ultra subject. How did she know this, right? What was her proof? So anyway, Mae Brussel's whole thing. And it just gets stupid. It's a game of telephone that just continues on. And of course, we have all the famous mass murderers in here. Of course, they're all programmed to kill. Why? Because David McGowan named the book Program to Kill, and he puts their names here. So that's enough for a lot of people to just immediately assume that this stuff is true. It's in a book. The names are on a list on the front page of a book, and it says politics of serial murderer, right? And of course, look whose name is right there, almost front and center. Our boy David Berkowitz. Okay. So, of course, what we're doing today is we are dealing with the Son of Sam information on here. I would really, really like it if some people out there would take on the other subjects in this book, because I'm going to just destroy Son of Sam. And my thesis is that if his Son of Sam information is garbage, well, then probably his methodology wasn't much different on the other cases. And so please take up that mantle, guys. I'm going to be doing Son of Sam today, and maybe someone else can do Manson and Hirons and all of the other stupid people he has he has in here. So, of course, one thing that a lot of people don't realize is that this book is 20 years old. It's filled with a lot of things that have since been proven wrong, as we're going to show, actually proven wrong via real life events that have ensued since this book came out that show that the information in this book is outdated and outmoded. But one of the things that we have to right. So Captain Slappy, this is exactly guilt by assumption alone. That's the problem with a lot of these books before our video series came along. And there's still people out there in the Son of Sam trying to do Son of Sam and trying to do true crime who are still in the guilt by assumption phase, not realizing that we totally destroyed that paradigm, well, when we came on the scene. But Program to Kill really came out in the heady times after 9/11. Now, I'm 50 years old. I know some people don't believe that. They're wondering what my skincare regimen is and my hair care regimen is. Guys, it's called Ivory Soap. All right, that's what it is. It's the only thing I ever use on my body. All right. So PTK in contact. So the heady days of 9/11. Now, I'm going to say something which may get me thrown off of the this video, thrown off of YouTube. And if that happens, I'll redo it without this saying. Guys, 9/11 was an inside job. I mean, let's just face it. Let's just face facts. 9/11 was not done by 19 Arabs with bin Laden and the 19 hijackers and 4 planes and all this stupid shit that you have to be a moron to actually believe. I knew, of course, on the day of 9/11 that it was an inside job. I had already been woken up 6 years prior in the 1995 or 6 Oklahoma City bombing, which was my conversion from a normal general New York City leftist, which in those days were cool. We were against censorship. We were against the war machine. We were against police brutality. We were for freedom of expression, right? The Oklahoma City bombing turned me from a classic liberal into starting my journey towards almost like a John Birch conservative, right? Like the most hardcore radical libertarian that you could possibly imagine, because I saw the total bullshit that was 9/11. And of course, after 9/11 came out, it was this 9/11 was, of course, the triggering event in modern American history, which split us all up, which divided this country like you couldn't believe. All of a sudden, after 9/11, you either knew it was an inside job or you went with the system. And a lot of people went with the system. And of course, those who went with the system were probably the majority. And what ended up in our lives? Well, we got the Iraq War, we got the Afghanistan War, we got the Patriot Act, and we began this long and slow and painful descent towards the social system that we ended up having in 2020 that allowed these same demons to run the corona hoax on us. Okay? So in the heady days after 9/11, there was a lot of conspiracy stuff coming out. All of a sudden, everyone was getting into the conspiracy aspect of the world. And like any new paradigm that was coming out, a lot of it tended to get very extreme. And one of the ways it got extreme was all of a sudden everybody doing this research into serial killers. MK Ultra became big. All of a sudden, the 1960s were a psyop. Every serial killer was an MK Ultra assassin and a patsy. And the entire 1960s, 70s, and 80s, in terms of the social scene, was all manufactured by the government to divide us. Now, I can say that I do actually think that the hippie movement was engineered. I do believe that the baby boomers were socially engineered to become really one of the worst generations on the planet, and they've totally destroyed this planet. But at the same time, I have since learned, because of the research that I have done in my own personal life regarding the historical crime known as Son of Sam, that at the very least, the information in Program to Kill vis-a-vis Son of Sam is complete horseshit. Now, why is it complete horseshit? Well, because McGowan makes his first and fatal mistake. Garbage in, garbage out. Quote, the alleged Son of Sam had a much shorter, though quite spectacular reign, just a year into Henry's killing spree. That's Henry Otis, or I don't even, some other serial killer I couldn't care less about. That string of execution-style shootings has been far more thoroughly examined in Maury Terry's The Ultimate Evil than would be possible here. Interested readers are advised to pick up a copy of Terry's book, a thorough reading of which will facilitate a better understanding of this book. Now, this is a huge passage. This is basically telling you that a couple things. One, Dave McGowan was too lazy to do original research on Son of Sam. He just didn't do original research on Son of Sam. He's saying it to you right here. He's saying, go read Maury Terry's book, because that's going to make you understand Son of Sam better than I ever could. And furthermore, he says something that's an absolute killer at this point. A thorough reading of The Ultimate Evil will facilitate a better understanding of this book, meaning his book, Program to Kill. Garbage in, garbage out. I have an archive of 50 videos at this point, proving in meticulous detail, using the actual forensic evidence, Berkowitz's words, police reports, that Maury Terry lied through his teeth. He made things up. He was completely an illegitimate author. He sold us a bill of goods. It was all fiction. So therefore, if Maury's book is the basis of McGowan's thesis of Program to Kill, and if Maury's book, The Ultimate Evil, will facilitate a better understanding of this book, well, then it's garbage in, garbage out. If you're using a known liar's book that is filled with packs of lies and is completely made up, well, then you already made that huge first error. And of course, Lavenda does the same thing in his Sinister Forces series. This is a fucking joke, this series. When I first started in Son of Sam 3 years ago, in terms of being a public researcher, because remember, I've been doing this for 30 years. Everyone said to me, Lavenda knows something. He was friends with Magical Child Warlock Shop, as if that means anything. Why would a person who hung out at the Warlock Shop matter to Son of Sam? I mean, what did David Berkowitz have anything to do with the Warlock Shop? I mean, give me a break, guys. I mean, you guys love saying Warlock to each other. So I went out and bought Lavenda's Sinister Forces. It was the biggest waste of money I ever made, because again, I wanted to learn something about Son of Sam, just like I bought Program to Kill. When I bought Program to Kill in 2004, I thought I was going to get original research. I thought I was going to get more than just a book report on Maury Terry's thesis. I didn't. I bought Sinister Forces thinking the same thing. Oh, Lavenda knows something. Everyone tells me that. This Sinister Forces was such a piece of shit. He called Detective Henry Cinatti, he called him Harry Cinatti. And again, it's another circle jerk. Lavenda got all his information from Maury and then regurgitated it back to us, and then used it within a context of, again, this stupid framework that this is just the successor to Program to Kill. That everything is engineered by all the serial murder is engineered by the power. Okay, if that's the world you want to live in, where no one's responsible for themselves, everybody's a programmed assassin, and there's some group called MK Ultra that exists to this day, programming patsies and assassins. I mean, that's fine if you want to believe that. I don't see how you prove it. Whereas I can prove that the information in PTK is complete shit. We haven't even gotten to it yet. And of course, there's another false premise in this book. Maury Terry, as previously mentioned, has done an excellent job of arguing the case that the Son of Sam killings were carried out by multiple cult members, despite the media portrait of David Berkowitz as the proverbial lone killer. So there's a bunch here and here in here, of course, proverbial lone killer. So of course it's making fun of the whole notion that one person could do something alone. Now, I mean, I'm not going to get into Lee Harvey Oswald. I don't really know. I mean, I don't even really have an opinion of that, to be honest with you. My attitude is, gives a shit about the Kennedy assassination. Was Kennedy good? I mean, I don't know. Should we have cared that he got assassinated? What do I care? You know, like, it happened 50, 60 years ago. I mean, there's more modern things that we should be worried about, like the corona hoax. That would actually help us as a society and as a world. But anyway, he starts with this proverbial lone killer, right? So there's a lot of mind steering that takes place in here. That there's no such thing as a lone killer. But this is what bothers me. Maury Terry has done an excellent job of arguing the case that the Son of Sam he did. Not according to me, not according to the people I work with. We've studied every aspect of the Queen's DA. We've read every line of the police files. We've read every line. I've read The Ultimate Evil probably about 300 times by now. I almost know it by heart. We show you where Maury actually lied. We show you the pages in his book, and then we show you the police report that he used to craft the narrative, and we show you how he lied. And we're going to show you that a lot today in today's episode. So this book already starts with false premises. It starts with the false premise that Ultimate Evil is truthful. And it starts with the false premise that Maury Terry did an excellent job. No, Maury Terry did not do an excellent job. Maury Terry was a liar, a drunkard, a not good friend, a chain smoker, a wig wearer, a guy who played jokes on people, a guy who would send his researchers riddles in order to find things. And you know why he did that? Because he knew that he had nothing. I don't know how more to tell you this. He literally couldn't allow his notes to be seen, because people would realize and take one look at them and say, what? This is just names on pieces of paper that say nothing to me. This is not an actual investigation with real law enforcement and real proof. This is just scribblings on paper. What is this crap? So Maury Terry played a hoax on us, and luckily we have come along and we have destroyed it. So here's Berkowitz writing in 1980, right? So we knew in 1980, although all this stuff was hidden from us. Maury Terry knew this. He had these letters. Berkowitz wrote this in 1980. Now, as for this cult, I am aware of many stories about an accomplice, but this isn't true. And I think it doubtful that Mr. Rubenstein could have told you this. One reason is simply because we have never discussed this, although I know that the Queen's District Attorney consulted him often for information. Another reason is this. Should I have told him of something like this, then by telling you, he would have violated an extremely confidential attorney-client relationship. So please do not be concerned with rumors. As far as I know, it is just like you said. The investigation in Westchester didn't lead anywhere. I assume that it has been discontinued, and it probably started because of a series of unrelated coincidences and erroneous information. Now, I know what people are going to say. Berkowitz is a liar. You know, I've been thinking about this whole Berkowitz is a liar thing. I actually don't think Berkowitz is a liar, now that I'm thinking about it. Berkowitz, if you really think about it, has been remarkably consistent over the years. We can excuse his lie about the talking dog. He was trying to feign insanity. He was trying to get an insanity defense. He thought that would be able to work if he started talking about this talking dog. I can excuse that lie. Okay. But show me where Berkowitz has lied to anybody except for Maury Terry. Okay. Berkowitz has been remarkably consistent. He's writing in 1980 that he heard about the cult theory and it's complete crap. It's an unrelated coincidences and erroneous information. A month ago, Monster Mirror by the great author Michael Caparelli, PhD, spiritual counselor, came out where he said plain as day that he did all the shootings alone and that he lied to Maury Terry because he felt intense pressure to lie in those interviews in the 90s with Maury Terry. I still wonder what that pressure ensued. Why was he feeling pressure to lie for Maury Terry? What did Maury Terry do for Berkowitz that made him feel pressure? My contention, of course, is that Maury Terry was buying him stuff. They had a deeper relationship than we think. It wasn't just journalist and subject. It was friend, bordering almost on homoerotic love, it seems. And I think that Maury Terry was a patron of Berkowitz, was a member of his fan club. So anyway, so Berkowitz has all of this consistent stuff to Abrahamson, to Jack Jones, to the media. The only time he deviates from any of this is with Maury Terry. Okay. So Maury Terry is the anomaly here. He's the outlier here. Everything else is actually remarkably consistent. And of course, here's another place where McGowan completely loses the plot. Here's his bibliography for Son of Sam. These are his notes, okay? This is where he got his information in his book, Program to Kill, about Son of Sam. So he got it from Steve Dunleavy. Some doubt Berkowitz is an only son. We'll talk about that in a second. It's a laughable joke. Newton Michael Raising Hell. Never heard of that book. But Michael Newton has never been known or called a Son of Sam researcher. I defy any Son of Sam researcher to find out who is this guy. And then notice that the other sources, Maury Terry, Ultimate Evil, Son of Sam Speaks, The Untold Story, which was directly out of Maury Terry, and Summer of Terror, the Son of Sam story, the Discovery Channel, which most likely used Maury Terry as a source as well. So, I would probably venture to guess, someone fact check me on this, but Michael Newton, to the extent that he's talked about Son of Sam, probably got all his information from Maury Terry as well. So McGowan's bibliography for Son of Sam is just straight out of the information from the liar, the drunk, the not good friend, the total charlatan, the guy who sent someone 1,500 feet this way when it was really 1,500 feet that way. The guy who still to this dying day told Carl Denaro, a woman shot you. At first it was Wendy, then it's Amy. Okay, and meanwhile Berkowitz shot Carl Denaro. Okay, so anyhow, this is, so again, garbage in, garbage out. When you use the work of a liar to prove a premise in your book, all you're proving is that you use the words of a liar. You didn't actually prove the thesis. There's no original research in Program to Kill. Program to Kill is strictly a book report of other people's work. So here's where it starts going wrong. So McGowan does a lot of mind steering. He gets that from Maury Terry. Maury Terry is the king of innuendo, right? He'll say, he won't actually call Virginia Voskerichian a call girl, but he'll say, there was a call girl ring at Columbia University, and Virginia Voskerichian went to Columbia University. Therefore, and then your mind fills in those blanks, because as a conspiratard, if you're one of those, the most tenuous links make sense to you, right? And you actually think that this person's connected to that person in some vast criminal conspiracy, never actually showing how this occurs in the real world. So the main mind steering that this guy does in the premise of his entire book is that all of these killers are not real. They're mind-controlled assassins. Mind Control 101. This is how the book starts, guys. He doesn't even give you a chance to like catch your breath before he's hitting you with MK Ultra as the premise for the entire book. It is probably safe to say that this is not your typical true crime book. It is instead a journey into an even darker, more disturbing world. One that exists in the shadows of the world depicted in the hundreds of formulaic serial killer biographies that line the shelves of America's bookstores. For many readers, much of this information contained within these pages will be unfamiliar, and some of the theories and ideas that are discussed may seem rather bizarre. So yeah, of course they're going to seem rather bizarre, because you're getting the information from a known liar named Maury Terry. It's very bizarre to think that Son of Sam, that Berkowitz was in a cult. Once you actually know once you've studied the actual real world evidence that exists in the real world, not in your head, not some tenuous connection you made to Roy Cohn just because his name is on a list. I'm talking about real evidence here. Okay. So, and then of course, in the book continues with more MK Ultra May Brussel bullshit. So here he writes, famed conspiracy researcher May Brussel made a telling observation nearly 3 decades ago in 1974. Quote, what we are now experiencing is the importation of the dreaded Operation Phoenix program into the United States. Through various created and manipulated acts of violence, the only solution to chaos, anarchy, and senseless violence acts will be a police state. We can expect the planned terrorization of the United States population to escalate rapidly. Now, there is some truth to that, I have to say. But where's her proof that Operation Phoenix was brought into the United States? Where's the actual documentation? I mean, she's putting this in quote. This is an actual quote. She said this as fact. So, of course, the end result of all this mind steering is that you get headlines like this, right, from the Vigilant Citizen. The Son of Sam case, a rare window into the inner workings of the occult elite. To most people, the Son of Sam is a crazed serial killer who terrorized New York in the late 70s. However, a closer look at this case reveals clear links to the occult elite and provides rare insight into its dark motivations. The goal of it all? Human sacrifices and occult rituals on a mass scale. Really? I don't know how you really get that from from reading Program to Kill. I mean, I do get it, because the whole book is a complete lie. So then you end up, after all of this mind steering, into thinking that Son of Sam was a dark look into the inner workings of the occult elite. Guys, what do you think do working with a guy named David Berkowitz from Dreiser Loop in the Bronx? Yeah, we're the occult elite. We're going to now get a postal worker who's 24 years old, who's wigging out on Pine Street to his neighbors, driving around all over, setting fires, doesn't have any time to actually meet with us. We're going to use this guy, us occult elite. We're going to use him to be the patsy. Now, I just have a question. Why wouldn't the cult kill Berkowitz? Right? It doesn't make any sense to me that they would leave this guy alive to be a patsy. I mean, if they're killing John Carr and Michael Carr, running him off the road, if they're killing J.D. Can and hanging people this and that and the other, why would they even let Berkowitz live? It doesn't make sense when you think about it. So anyway, and of course, then you end up getting this stuff, right? And this was the norm in Son of Sam before our video series came along. Sam changed after LSD trips. In June 19th. Oh, sorry. Sam changed after LSD trips. In June 71. All right, I see Neo's in the house. He let's leave him in for a little while. Let's let him get his aggression out. But let's just see how that goes. I mean, whatever. He's like a little barking dog at this point. In June 1971, Jewish Charles Richard Berkowitz. First of all, it's not even his freaking name, Charles Richard Berkowitz. Where did this? His name was David Berkowitz, David Richard Berkowitz. I mean, these people can't even get the guy's name right, yet this is what was passing for Son of Sam information before we came along. In June 71, Jewish Charles Richard Berkowitz joined the U.S. Army. In December, he was shipped to South Korea as an Army Specialist E4, where he is stationed for 10 months. During his years of service, he used marijuana, mescaline, amphetamines, and LSD. The late John Judge, along with May Brussel, there's her name again, maintained that the type of acid the Manson family used was a special military version, unlike the stuff found on the streets. And though it was called acid, it was actually different from LSD-25. It is believed that the MK Ultra version of acid, well, I mean, this is making me feel stupid to even read this. The MK version of acid was actually psilocybin derivative called EA-1729 that was used at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, home to Himmler's SS rocket team, as part of MK Ultra experiments. Reportedly, this is the same acid that a buddy of David Berkowitz's named Terry Patterson, who served with him in Korea, claimed Berkowitz was given by the brass while he served in the army. Berkowitz was placed in a special program for profiled candidates after he asked for conscientious objector status. May Brussel was convinced that Berkowitz was another in a long list of MK Ultra patsies and hilariously referred to him as sons of Uncle Sam. So, do you see the absolute ridiculous nature of this? And again, this is what a lot of I actually believed this at one point when I was a cult head, and without a doubt, there are people who are reading this right now who actually believe this, right? But notice, it is believed. That's not proof. It is believed. I can believe that the moon is made of cheese. It is believed that the moon is made of cheese. Does that make it true? Also, how would anyone know what acid was given to Berkowitz? Were you there? And then, of course, Himmler comes in now. Now they bring in Hitler into all of this. Hitler, MK Ultra. Does anyone get the impression that this is all like one big sexual fetish to these people? It's really very strange to me, the way that these people communicate with each other. And I get it. I was once one of you guys. Back in 2004, when I read The Program to Kill, I was a cult head. I also believed that reptilians ran the universe. Okay. And I was actually telling this to people out in the real world. And I can say for a fact that it didn't help me socially very much. And so in the year 2023, is anybody still using this information as actually factual to use as the basis of your theories about Son of Sam? Again, 2004 called it, wants its paradigm back. That's like so ancient, tired, old, decrepit. It's like not cool anymore. I mean, we're in the age of reality in true crime. And I know this because we pioneered this in true crime. We pioneered the actual use of real evidence. I know it sounds crazy, but before we came along in Son of Sam, all you had was Ed Flopperman interviewing Detective His Mayoralty, the honored Jimmy Boots Rothstein, who, when you asked him about Son of Sam, would start talking to you about JFK and Marita Lorenz. And hey, you got to understand something. My job was to cover all the rackets. I was in juice joints. Yeah. Quasimodo. I mean, it's like ridiculous. So this is the kind of shit that passed for research. And again, it's ridiculous. So again, more mind steering. Now so there's a chapter 14 called Superstars, where he talks about the big killers. So again, with absolutely no proof of claim and with zero evidence to back this up, he writes, as the mid-1970s rolled around, the FBI's behavioral science unit came of age. The science of criminal profiling was thrust upon the American people. The term serial killer entered the national lexicon, and the marauding mass murderer suddenly became the new American anti-hero. As soon as there was a name for this new and feared breed of criminal, the country bore witness to the media giving saturation coverage to the alleged exploits of these individuals, creating larger-than-life figures out of the likes of Henry Lee Lucas, David, son of Sam Berkowitz, Theodore Robert Bundy, John Wayne Gacy, Angelo Buono, and Kenneth Bianchi, collectively known as the Hillside Stranglers. So, of course, here, Berkowitz he doesn't actually give any proof of anything. There's zero proof given in here of anything. He just puts David Berkowitz's name amongst a list of other killers, puts it under and thinks superstars, and talks about FBI behavioral science units. There's no proof. I went to go check out his documentation on this in the bibliography, and there was none. So this is like ridiculous. Guy, I'm gonna get rid of Neo, not because I want to. Actually, we're gonna put him in a timeout. Mainly because he's just distracting things. Okay. I don't care if he has something to add that's actually real and factual, but he's just causing trouble. So we're not gonna bother with that. So now we're gonna read you the longest passage in The Ultimate Evil. Give me a second here. Sorry, it's a cell phone. So this is going to be our springboard now. These passages here for the rest of today's show, which is going to be a devastating takedown of specific information that he puts out about Son of Sam that's just factually incorrect. So I'll read it to you first, and then we'll take it piece by piece. Several years after the publication of Henry's book, journalist Maury Terry told a story with chilling parallels to the one told by Henry and Otis. What Terry revealed in The Ultimate Evil is that the murders attributed to the Son of Sam and the Manson family, as well as numerous other interconnected killings, including possibly the Zodiac murders, were not what they appeared to be. Rather than the random work of serial mass murderers, many were actually contract hits carried out for specific purposes by an interlocking network of satanic cults. In other words, they were professional hits orchestrated in disguise to look like the work of yet another lone nut serial killer. That is, of course, exactly what Henry claimed his crimes to be several years before Terry published his compellingly documented work. Now, I'm just going to make an editorial comment here. Compellingly documented. There's no documentation at all in Maury Terry's book. There's no bibliography. There's no index. There's no footnotes. And as we have seen in our video series, he literally made stuff up. He lied. He juiced information. He literally made things up when he had to. He manipulated information. Terry's book was not compellingly documented, McGowan. Terry's book has been unfairly maligned by much of the media. His contention is that David Berkowitz had nothing to do with the planning of the killings. He was just one of several gunmen. Berkowitz was essentially a patsy who took the fall to protect the rest of the cult, particularly those members who travel in the upper strata of society. That scenario has been roundly ridiculed. Many of Terry's critics have pointed to the fact that Ed Sanders, The Family, which in a sense laid the groundwork for Terry's later work, was recalled by its publisher and reissued sans 2 crucial chapters. That is purported to be proof that the allegations both authors make, particularly the allegations regarding the Process Church, are without substance. What such critics unerringly fail to mention is that it was only the U.S. publisher that bowed to pressure to recall the book. The book's publisher in the UK, on the other hand, stood behind the book and its author, a decision that withstood legal challenges. Terry's numerous critics also unerringly failed to mention that Queens District Attorney John Santucci reopened the Son of Sam case in 1979 after concluding that Berkowitz did not act alone. Quote, "I believe David Berkowitz did not act alone, that in fact others did cooperate, aid, and abet him in the commission of these crimes," unquote. Among other things, Santucci pointed out that, quote, "the sketches of the individuals, the composites, were at wide divergence from Berkowitz," unquote. And indeed they were. In fact, the sketches were at wide divergence from one another, as the New York Post noted. The identikit drawings of the NYPD, which some say are better than photographs, give 7 different looks to the killer. Santucci also noted, as did the Post, that an unusual number of people who were connected to the case and who were identified by Berkowitz as being complicit in the crimes are no longer living. Berkowitz, by the way, had a number of interesting connections. Police found numerous telephone numbers scrawled on the walls of his apartment, including the unlisted private home numbers of prominent doctors living on Long Island, the number for a large Scientology training center in Florida, and the number for the Montauk Golf and Racquet Club, an exclusive country club on Long Island that lies adjacent to a purportedly closed military base that has been tenuously linked by researchers to ongoing mind control operations. So there's a lot here, man. First of all, we'll deal with a lot of this stuff in detail here, but look at where he steers your mind, right? Berkowitz had home numbers of a person who's the Golf and Racquet Club, which was adjacent to a purportedly closed military base that has been tenuously linked by researchers to ongoing mind control operations. This is proof for you guys. This is like absolute dreck. Again, it's mind steering. And all of this, by the way, is totally untrue. We're just going to deal with, because I don't deal with this specifically, but John Santucci did say this, okay? But he said it before they actually did the research, before they did the investigation. If you go and listen to the tapes of Herb Leifer speaking to Maury Terry from the Queens DA, and this is after they do the investigation, They're speaking to Maury Terry as if he's a lunatic. They're saying to him, "We found nothing, Maury. You keep on telling us stuff, but we're going out and investigating and we're finding nothing." And then Maury Terry starts talking about Joaquin Guncarlo and check him out because he had a yellow Volkswagen. Yo, Schmendrix. Joaquin Guncarlo was a day laborer who lived on the third floor of the Netto house. He was like the most nicest guy, according to the Nettos. He was a church-going family man. But Maury Terry named him as one of the sons of Sam. Okay, you'll see Joaquin Guncarlo's name on the list of the 22. This is complete bullshit. So we have all these tenuous links to military mind control operations. We have phone numbers scrawled on walls. We have composite sketches all matching. Well, let's take a look at some of these composite sketches. So these are the sketches that came out from Son of Sam. Now, I do want to say that's a dead ringer for Berkowitz right there. And this is from the Voskerichian killing. This is from the Loria killing, which even he admits it's close. This is from Voskerichian, the chubby teenager, which we dealt with on our Voskerichian series. To me, it's not the closest look in the world, but it is close enough, I think, to be within a margin of error for, again, drawings. I don't understand where this guy comes off saying that composite sketches, which some say are better than photographs. Who's these some? Who said this? Where's the documentation? And so what? Some say that the moon is made of cheese. Some say that some can say anything in the world. I mean, so this person is anyway. So I feel like Joe Biden. I'm so exasperated right now. So of course this is the one that's controversial, which we'll get to. But here are the sketches. Berkowitz looks a lot like that. He looks like this, actually, even though you don't know it yet. He looks exactly like that. And this was a sketch of him because he did this shooting. But let's take a look at the most controversial Son of Sam sketch, the John Wheaties car sketch, right? This was from Lomino DeMasi. Oh, it was John Carr because the hairstyle is parted and it looks like a picture of John Carr. Well, sorry guys. Here's David Berkowitz in 1971 at the Shore Haven Beach Club. He has that exact same hairstyle. Here's Berkowitz in 1979 giving a press conference. He has the exact same hairstyle. It's parted exactly. I mean, look at the two drawings and look at the two hair. I mean, do I need to make this any clearer? So there's no controversy on the sketches. Actually, there was only a controversy because Maury Terry made a controversy out of it. It wasn't actually a controversy in real life. And besides, as any law enforcement professional will tell you, sketches mean nothing. They're not really all that big a deal. Most law enforcement discount sketches. And this is something that I learned through the law enforcement that we became friends with on the show. So let's read a review of Program to Kill. Let's read this 5-star review. So this is an absolutely positive review. One of the most frightening books I've ever read, and I don't make that statement lightly. Paints a truly terrifying and vivid picture of out-of-control U.S. government-sponsored mind control programs involving mass murder and torture of civilians, child abuse and child pornography on a global scale. Most interesting of all for me is McGowan's re-examination of some of the most famous cases of serial murder in the 20th century. You start to see some frightening similarities between the different cases that are too hard to dismiss as a mere coincidence. Now, I'm going to editorialize here. McGowan didn't re-examine anything. McGowan wrote a book report of other people's work and then came up with the connections in his own head, saying some say this and it is believed and some say that and May Brussels said this, providing absolutely no proof. And then he made the connections. There's actually no real connections in the real world. It would also appear that there has been a deliberately orchestrated effort on the part of law enforcement and government officials in the USA to hide many aspects of these cases, and McGowan's thorough research of many of the more famous trials reveals that most of them were nothing but show trials that in any other circumstances would have caused uproar among the legal community and within the whole of society itself. I do have problems with some of McGowan's conclusions. His obsessions with supposed satanic cults is the major one that leaves to me that to me leaves him skating dangerously close to satanic panic style hysteria. I also have problems with his insistence on citing Maury Terry's The Ultimate Evil as a source, a book which to me is nothing but a piece of sensationalist trash that helped fuel the great satanic panic of the 1980s. His research regarding the satanic aspect of his theories is severely lacking, in my opinion. However, his research into government mind control programs, serial killings, and organized pedophile networks seems to be pretty spot on. So even in the 5-star review, the guy trashes Maury Terry. I mean, I found that kind of interesting. But let's get in deeper into McGowan, Son of Sam misinformation. I told you that we were going to prove this using actual primary sources. We don't do opinion here. We do fact. That's how we roll. So, of course, telephone numbers on the wall. Berkowitz, by the way, had a number of interesting connections. Police found numerous telephone numbers scrawled on the walls of his apartment, including the unlisted private home numbers of prominent doctors living on Long Island, the number for a large Scientology training center in Florida, and the number for the Montauk Golf and Racquet Club, an exclusive country club on Long Island that lies adjacent to a purportedly closed military base that has been tenuously linked by researchers to ongoing mind control operations. So, of course, now I should expect to go to the pictures of Berkowitz's wall and find telephone numbers scrawled on it. After all, it says here in the program to kill, it says here in black and white. I'm not making this up. Like I didn't type this and pretend it to be the program to kill. You can go open your copy of Program to Kill and find this passage in it. It says that he had a number of interesting numbers scrawled on the walls of his apartment. Well, I went to the record and I found all the pictures of Berkowitz's walls on his apartment. There's, of course, the famous shirt that he killed Stacy Moskowitz in, the gray shirt with the sleeves rolled up. I'm not seeing any scrawls of numbers here. I feel like George Bush. No weapons of mass destruction here. Okay, here's more. Right, here's his walls. I see taped pages here, but I don't see any scrawling of numbers. I mean, do you? I'm going to show you every wall in his apartment. Where's the numbers scrawled on the wall? I mean, they're not there. They just don't exist. I mean, this is a complete egregious error in the book. I mean, but you believed it as a Program to Kill reader. Craig Glassman worships the devil and his power over me. Okay. So here's more pictures of his wall. Hi, my name is Mr. Williams. I live in this hole. Several children turning into killers. My neighbors I have no respect for. Where's the numbers written on the wall? Well, here is where these so-called numbers are. This was a page that's in the Queens DA, that's in the NYPD files for investigators' notes, and it's a very strange document, and I have severe questions about it. First of all the numbers are redacted, so we can't actually see if this is a real page from Berkowitz's telephone book. This is not Berkowitz's handwriting. And this handwriting here looks like Maury Terry's handwriting. I can't say for a fact that this is Maury Terry's handwriting. And it looks like it's actually two different handwritings here. But we don't see the phone numbers. This Shelter Island, East Hampton, Shoreham, West Hampton, that's not in Berkowitz's handwriting. Nothing in here is in Berkowitz's handwriting that we can see. Now, I know that Maury Terry said it was just the numbers, no names or anything. Well, without seeing those numbers, I am putting this into the bullshit pile because there's no provenance of this. What is this document? It's redacted phone numbers with East Hampton and Shoreham under it. And I don't know whether Berkowitz wrote this. I don't know whether these numbers actually linked up to Dr. William Garvin. And we thought William Garvin was a member of the cult, one of the eye doctor elite from Yonkers. I mean, I don't understand why Berkowitz would have the guy's number or anything. I mean, I don't know what to make of this document. If it is Berkowitz's, if it is real and it's Berkowitz, well, there has to be an explanation. He didn't know these people. He didn't party with people at the Montauk Golf Club. I mean, to believe that, you'd have to believe that whatever cult this is, and where's this cult located? Long Island, Westchester, California? Like, no one seems to know. You'd have to believe that these high elites were partying with 24-year-old postal worker David Berkowitz. It's just out of the realm of possibility, and that they're calling up their patsy. Yeah, you're my patsy. You're the 24-year-old postal worker that we're going to use as a patsy. Oh, by the way, here's my number. Call me anytime. Right? Yeah, here's my number in Long Island. Why don't you come out and visit me sometime? I mean, does anyone actually believe that this is the way the real world works? But having said that, this is where the so-called numbers are. We can't see them. We don't know what the hell this is. This is, I think, in Maury Terry's handwriting. I could be wrong about that. I don't want to steer you guys into thinking that. There are examples of Maury Terry's handwriting out there. Maybe I should have checked before I made that potential accusation. But I don't know what this is, and neither do you. And no one could use this as proof of anything because there's no provenance. There's no detective's name on it. There's many different handwritings on here. We just don't know what the hell this is. Who drew this down here, right? And all sorts of stuff like that. So there were no telephone numbers scrawled on the wall. The only alleged telephone numbers that exist are on this document. And this document is like, what the hell is this? Now, I'm willing to say that I don't have the answer for this document, but I am also going to say the actual fact that neither do you. And it's these things that we can debate as Son of Sam researchers and discuss. It would actually be a much better use of our time than discussing my hair or whether I'm wearing a wig or whether my father was Operation Mockingbird, because none of these things actually are real. Well, my hair is real. So, of course, another thing that that McGowan does in this book of fiction, actually a book report of fiction, because again, there's no original research done in Program to Kill. All Program to Kill is a compendium of other people's research that he accepted as fact and then presented to you with another spin on it. And he did it during the time period of the heady conspiracy days after 9/11, when this country was absolutely going nuts in terms of people getting into the conspiracy camp, people so confused and bothered over the 9/11 and what just happened, and the splitting into camps of 9/11 inside job versus official story, which is what happened actually really in America after that event. PTK, Program to Kill, comes out in that environment, basically capitalizing off of that social milieu and ferment that was going on in those years. I was 28 when the towers were exploded. So I was a full-fledged adult. I was totally conscious, and I remember exactly what was going on in those years. Maybe you're in your early 30s and you're coming to this book now. You were like 3 years old when 9/11 happened. You don't have the proper context to understand the times in which this book came out. But here's another thing, right? Part 2, there's something about Henry, and it's all of the, you don't understand me, you're not expected to, you're not capable of, I'm beyond good and evil, legions of the night breed, repeat the errors, and so on and so forth, right? Charles Manson is in there, your children, there are many more coming at you. Theodore Bundy. The really scary thing is there are a lot of people who are not in prison, a lot of people who are far more successful than I. So, right, so this is all about how there were other people. And then, of course, he has David Berkowitz in there, too. There are other sons out there. God help the world. And, of course, he uses that, right, as proof that there was other sons out there. He just takes this passage and that's his proof. He uses this blurb, and your mind steers to think that there were other sons out there. Well, let's read the actual letter in which that term came out, other sons. And it's very important. One of the things that I like to emphasize is that you need to put things into context in when you're investigating these crimes. You can't extract one line out of something like what Maury Terry does, put it into a book completely out of context, and then present that into the way you want people's mind to be steered. What you have to do as an honest researcher who actually cares about the case and cares about truth is you have to go to the primary source. You have to read it fully. You have to place that quote in context about other sons, and then you can come up to a conclusion. And by the way, I see a bunch of great comments in here. Um, Here, so Ralph, dude, I'm sorry I'm not getting to them. I'm just so into what I'm doing. At the end of the show, I'll go through the comments and I'll reply. But I recall that that I found McGowan's work on the original Night Stalker very compelling, but it's since been refuted as they caught the guy with DNA. He acted alone. Right. PTK is filled with stuff like that. Total assumptions that have since been proven to be false, and we're going to look at a little bit of that too. So let's read the Dunleavy letter because again, we need to put things into full context. Dear Mr. Dunleavy, despite the fact that you are no good and that Mr. Carposi Jr. has quoted me as saying many things which I did not say, I still need you as a messenger to reach the world. Please listen. That letter to Breslin, I was forced to write. Breslin wanted to get up here, so he needed a letter. I was almost forced to write it. By the way, this is not the Breslin letter he's talking about. This was a letter he wrote to Breslin post-arrest. Why did I want to speak with Breslin? It was not because I like him. I know that he is just a greedy reporter, but I need a messenger to Earth. Listen, I'm pleading with you to understand the forces of darkness and evil. Sam Carr is one of the devils of Satan. I cannot make myself any clearer. That dog was not a dog, but a demon from hell. I happen to love dogs. Sam is a force in person beyond the wildest imaginations of people. He is not human. I have seen them, Carr, Cassara, Glassman, as they really are. I have seen them as demons, not as humans. Their humanness is only a front. They are here on Earth to destroy it. I have tried to tell the police, a letter. I have tried to tell the world, a letter to Breslin. What more do you want? Why can't the Earth wake up? I am doomed now. My fate is already decided. There are other suns out there. God help the world. That is why, in a sense, I have given up in court, because I am doomed by fate, only not because I'm tired or depressed. So we're going to continue on with the letter, but there's the quote, right? It's in the middle of all this stuff about talking about seeing demons and seeing Sam Carr, a totally normal person, as a demon. Cassara, his former landlord, as a demon. His downstairs neighbor, Craig Glassman, he's seen them as a demon. So this is a delusional letter written by a psychotic mind. And this line is in here. There are other suns out there. Well, he actually refers back to this line later in the letter. So let's keep that in mind. Please, I am writing quickly. If a guard comes and finds me, will open. They'll kill me. This is all a plot. They're trying to make me into a cold-blooded killer or a nut. The victims, the survivors, are crying for blood. My blood. They have blinded themselves to my message that the world must understand. I tried to destroy the demons by killing them. Molotov cocktails, bullets in the fire to kill him. Again, this letter is weird because it's like I'm putting it in sequential order, but it doesn't make sense. Okay. So just deal with that. Really are. I have seen them as demons, not humans. Their humanness is only a front. Oh, wait. Hold on 1 second. Oh, duh. That's the same page. The people, you two are trying to make me look like a. Hold on. You know what? He actually writes this stuff twice. So let me read it. I have seen them as demons, not as humans. Their humanness is only a front. They are only here on Earth to destroy. I have tried to tell the police, a letter. I have tried to tell the world, letter to Breslin. What more do you want? Why can't the Earth wake up? I am doomed now. My fate is already decided. There are other suns out there. God help the world. The people, you two, are trying to make me look like a cold-blooded killer. This I can understand, but that is what Sam wants. He doesn't want to be exposed, and now everything is going to be his way. You're all fools. Adolf Hitler was controlled by Sam's father, Satan. I didn't like him. I only had a file on him. I had no admiration for him, but he was one of the sons. Didn't you see the other crimes in my folders? So here is the money shot. He just added Adolf Hitler was a son. Okay, you're seeing this. How do you not express this as real or see this as real? This is real. Berkowitz wrote this. He's saying that Adolf Hitler was one of the sons. And he's saying, didn't you see my other crimes in my folders? He was a true crime buff, as we're going to see. He liked collecting articles on killers. That's who he was talking about when he's talking about other sons. He's not talking about a cult. He's talking about Adolf Hitler, for crying out loud. Let's carry on. I plead to the world to understand the forces of darkness evil. Sam Carr is one of the devils of Satan. I cannot make myself any clearer. That dog, demon, was not a dog, but a demon from hell. Everybody knows that dogs cannot talk. Sam is a force beyond the wild imaginations of people. He is not human. I have seen them Carr as they really. When I killed, I really saved many lives. You will understand later. People want my blood, but they don't want to listen to what I have to say. I talked to the cops with dignity and respect when I got caught. I'm no wise ass like Redacted made me out to be. You're just making it worse for the world and better for Sam. I need you, Dunleavy. I must be released from here. Put me in touch with Inspector Dowd, Detective Jim Fox. He stayed with me. He knows about Sam. He will listen. There were also Sam's doings. What about the folder on major disasters? Those were Sam's works. Train crashes, the airplane crash, earthquakes. People are eager to destroy me, but I have a message. They must listen. I don't know why I'm writing you. I don't like you. Your paper writes all those lies. They spread deceit against me with erroneous reports. You guys broke into my house. I should really kill you, but I need you. I need a messenger. Please listen to me for once. David Berkowitz. All right, so he's talking about Adolf Hitler being the sons. He's talking about Sam Carr controlling earthquakes and train crashes and airplane crashes. Now, we can debate whether he was actually really insane or feigning insanity, but it does not matter. McGowan used that quote from that letter to prove to you guys that there are other sons out there, that the Berkowitz was a member of a cult. He steered your mind to that direction. I just showed you the actual real letter in context where he uses that term, other sons out there, and then proceeds to talk about Adolf Hitler being another son. So I think that's another myth destroyed. Let's read a review. Lame, so lame. I hardly know where to start. First, Mr. McGowan uses references almost solely in the form of lurid magazine articles, television programs, newspaper articles, the internet, and true crime books. Hardly sterling and trustworthy sources. Second, every page is liberally sprinkled with allegedly, purportedly, supposedly, and questionable with regards to convicted serial killers. Really? Conspiracy buffs will love this book. Mr. McGowan's assessments of serial killers seems to be that none have been guilty, but have all been fall guys for drug dealers, child pornography rings, Satanist groups, and corrupt law enforcement, but never explains why he believes this to be the case. Additionally, when referring to the above groups, he manages to interweave prominent Americans' names, again, without evidence or explanation or any relevance to the narrative. And then this goes on to talk about how the mistakes he makes, and we don't need to read all this stuff. Let's carry on with his misinformation. So this actually comes from Weird Scenes Inside the Canyon, Laurel Canyon, Covert Ops, and the Dark Heart of the Hippie Dream, another major book in conspiratard research. The premise of this book is that all of rock and roll was a psyop. The original hippies were all psyops. The original rock and rollers were all psyops, and so on and so forth. Now, I haven't done the research. In that era, everybody's parents was from the military and possibly military intelligence. Yes, my father was military intelligence. You know what it meant? That when he was in Korea, he surveyed roads and wrote back to his superior commander and said, "This road is clear." That's what military intelligence meant. You know, that's another thing that a lot of people don't realize. They think they hear the word intelligence and that the person's a cloak and dagger spy conducting psyops on the American people. No, intelligence just means you're gathering information. That's all that means. So my father was military intelligence. Yeah, I know. That means I'm a psyop. Oh, if that's the world you want to live in, guys, I mean, that's fine. So this is about Untermeyer Park. So strangely enough, New York City once had a large estate known as Greystone as well. That Greystone was donated to city as parkland, and it thereafter became known as Untermeyer Park. The same Untermeyer Park identified by Maury Terry as one of two principal ritual sites used by the process faction behind the Son of Sam murders. The other site used by the cult was Van Cortlandt Park, named for Jacobus Van Cortlandt, a former mayor of New York and one of David Van Cortlandt Crosby's forefathers. Another of Crosby's forefathers lent his name to Schuyler Road, which happens to run along the western boundary of the Greystone estate in Hollywood Hills. I have no idea what, if anything, any of that means, but I thought it best that I toss it into the mix. So you can see his methodology here. First of all, Untermeyer Park is in Yonkers. It's not in New York City. So this is a major error right here. This is enough to discount everything that's in the book, that he couldn't even do enough research to find out that Untermeyer Park was in Yonkers. I thought this guy read Maury Terry's information, his book. How did he not know that Untermeyer Park is in Yonkers? He says it's in New York City. And then, of course, he brings in David Crosby into the mix. Oh, Crosby was a Van Cortlandt. Therefore, that means something. I mean, I'm sure. I mean, maybe it does. But I can honestly tell you that the Van Cortlandt family doesn't really exist anymore in the United States, and especially and has no bearing whatsoever in New York City at all. I mean, maybe the last time they did was in the 1800s. And so, and then of course, he says here that Maury Terry identified Untermeyer Park as being used by the Process faction behind Son of Sam. Again, he just tells you that. I can tell you that the Grand Canyon is really just a little divot in the ground. I can tell you anything I want. It doesn't make it true. And then, of course, at the end, he goes, so he puts all of this implication in here, right? You're to think Untermeyer Park was named Greystone because it's connected to the Van Crosbys and Schuyler Road and Hollywood. And so there's your cultic connections between New York and California. But then in the end, he goes, I have no idea what, if anything, any of this means, right? I'll tell you what it means. I have an idea. It means jack shit. That's what it means. And you know why I know that? Because just go to my playlist for Untermeyer Park. I got like 12 or 13 videos right now on the Untermeyer Park series. Every one of these shows you how, well, not every one of them, but quite a few talk to you about how there was no, we get into the sociology of it. We speak to witnesses. There was no Son of Sam cult in Untermeyer Park. It's an absolute farce. And of course, the biggies. Now we're going to deal with the Arliss Perry hoax. So now we're going to read this. This is from Program to Kill. This is another thing that in 2004 made sense to us as Son of Sam researchers, because all we had to go by was Maury Terry's book. We didn't have any of the Queen's DA files. We didn't have any of this current knowledge that we have of the case that only came out in the last 2 years because of the power of our video series. The Arliss Perry hoax. On October 12th, 1974, the birthday of Aleister Crowley. That's how they do these things. So now I'm gonna read and comment as I go. I'm not gonna read the whole thing. I'm gonna read it and comment. So they always do this October 12th, like because this murder took place on Aleister Crowley's birthday, that somehow that meant something to someone. Student Arliss Perry was brutally murdered and left on display in the Stanford Memorial Church on the campus of Stanford University, nestled in the shadows of the Santa Cruz Mountains. Perry was left lying on her back, with her head towards the altar and her legs spread wide. She was nude from the waist down, and an altar candle protruded from her vagina. Another altar candle was wedged between her exposed breasts. Her jeans had been neatly arranged in an inverted V shape and placed across her splayed legs, forming the Masonic symbol of the compass and the square. Now, I just want to say, doesn't this read like softcore porn to you? Like, this is almost like these people are getting off on this. This is gross writing. Why does he need to put all of this sexual stuff in here when talking about a murder? This guy is spiritually sick. He's equating sex with murder here. I mean, this is very disturbing to me. Lying on her back, legs spread wide, nude from the waist down, and an altar protruding from her vagina. 5 years earlier, the very same symbol had been left carved into the stomach of Manson victim Leno LaBianca as the W in the word war. Okay, all right. I mean, I don't know how you can make that connection, but anyway. The prime suspect in the still unsolved murder of Perry is a man named Bill Menser, who knew Charles Manson and at least one of his victims, Abigail Folger. In fact, Menser reportedly had lunch with Folger just a few days before her death. He later was connected to David, son of Sam Berkowitz, as well, and still later was convicted of the Cotton Club murder of aspiring film producer Roy Radin. Now, we'll deal with Bill Menser on his own because this is a major thing. But let's just deal with Arliss Perry. Now, first of all, Bill Menser didn't do the murder of Arliss Perry. I mean, this is another thing, like update your operating system. This is still in the book. 2023, this erroneous information is still in the book about Bill Menser. It was Stephen Crawford's DNA who was matched to the scene, and he killed himself when the police came to arrest him for the murder of Arliss Perry in 2018. This was the guy that did it. It was the freaking security guard. Had zero to do with cultic activity, had zero to do with John Wheaty's car, as if John Carr had anything to do with any of this. So again, update your operating systems, guys. You're reading a book and taking it seriously when there's absolute major errors in here. And of course, how did Berkowitz know about Perry? Because this is a big mystery. Berkowitz knew about Arliss Perry's murder. He was debriefed about it at a cult meeting with Bill Menser. Give me a sec. I just got a cough. He was. Where was this cult meeting? I mean, we're gonna hear from Nicholas Schreck in a few minutes about Bill Menser and who he knew and what he knew. Now, the simple fact is that Berkowitz was a member of a true crime fan club. Dear Dr. Albernson, enclosed in this letter are 7 letters which are typed carbons of letters that were sent to a friend of mine on the West Coast. Both her and her husband, as well as myself, are fellow crime buffs. She is also a Christian who is involved with counseling people who are taken in by occult groups. Lately, all 3 of us have been following the Bundy and Hillside Strangler cases closely. I've done a lot of writing and studying myself with regards to these 2 guys as well as myself. And then here's the money shot. Berkowitz had no clue and thought Ted Bundy killed Arliss Perry. Dear D. Okay, we're not going to read the first 2 paragraphs but basically he's saying here, I got letters 60 and 61 from you plus the 2 magazines. I also got the 13 stamps. Thanks for all of it. So they're exchanging articles with each other. Him and D, his friends and his true crime buffs. D, getting back to Ted. I would like to see the book when and if it comes out. I also have questions about the victims. Do you, from your extensive investigation into the Bundy case, think that he also murdered Arliss Perry? She was the teenage girl from California who was found slain and left on top of a church altar somewhere in that state. I would also be interested in knowing about the victims, such as, were any of them true Christians? If you know any of this information, I would appreciate hearing about it. So, of course, in this paragraph, you can glean a lot of information. He thought Ted Bundy killed Arliss Perry. He didn't know where she was killed. It just said somewhere in that state. And so, according to Maury Terry, Berkowitz held the key to the Arliss Perry killing. He knew who did it. He was at a meeting where her picture was shown. Bill Menser said he did it. It was the North Dakota faction of the Son of Sam cult that traveled out to California. I thought all that was true. If all that was true, why am I seeing this passage in this letter to Abrahamson from 1979, and this was the same period where he was sending the stuff about Arliss Perry to Maury Terry. He didn't know the first thing about Arliss Perry. It was a complete mystery. He heard about her through clippings sent, and here's proof that he got clippings. Berkowitz is receiving clippings of West Coast newspapers. So this is another letter he wrote from to D Channel. Those California newspapers you read are really something. San Francisco Chronicle, Sacramento Bee. They seem to have so many interesting stories about the things that interest you in your line of work. New York papers are dull, dull, dull. I guess the West Coast papers have to print articles which relate and have interest to the general public of gays, sexual deviants, Satanists, weirdos, nude bathers, crazies, hippies, yippies, zippies, and homicidal maniacs, which make up the bulk of California's population. So here he is putting Satanists, by the way. I thought Berkowitz was a hardcore Satanist. Here he is putting Satanists in with gays, sexual deviants, weirdos, nude bathers, crazies, hippies, yippies, zippies, and homicidal maniacs. So he put Satanists in with there too. So I don't know if this guy was a true Satanist. It's a pretty big diss on himself. And if anyone wants to look up further more information on the Arliss Perry hoax, I have a full hour-long video where I go into much more detail about the letters that he wrote about Arliss Perry. I just showed you the greatest hits here. So McGowan gets two things wrong. He gets the killer wrong, and he connects Arliss Perry to Son of Sam. There was no connection whatsoever to Son of Sam. Roy Radin and Bill Menser. And this is our last topic of the day. So this is in a footnote. It will be recalled that Henry Lee Lucas claimed that the upper echelons of the cult that he was involved with included men of wealth and power. Berkowitz has made the same claims of the Son of Sam cult. Journalist Maury Terry has uncovered evidence suggesting the involvement of such figures as high-rolling art dealer Andrew Crispo and would-be Cotton Club producer Roy Radin. Crispo admitted to being present at the scene of a ritual homicide, accompanied by the son of a UN executive, but he denied participating in the grisly murder. Radin, on the other hand, became a victim of one of the cult's ritual executions. He was shot repeatedly in the head with a shotgun by three of magazine publisher Larry Flint's former bodyguards. One of them was Manson associate Bill Menser. So now Bill Menser's name comes up a lot in Program to Kill. He's the killer of the Son of Sam cult. Of course, Maury says he's the shooter in the Freund shooting. So McGowan in Program to Kill makes this flat out statement. He goes, Radin became a victim of one of the cult's ritual executions. So he's saying that there. This is in black and white. This is what you believed unless you have other information. Okay? So now I would suggest that you go read Bad Company, Drugs, Hollywood, and the Cotton Club Murder, because Roy Radin's murder had nothing whatsoever to do with Son of Sam. It was a drug deal gone bad with Laney Jacobs, coupled with this weird deal over Cotton Club, the movie Cotton Club that he had with Bill Evans. And it just so happened that Menser was the killer. But what Maury Terry did was that he had all this information before, and he used it to weave another narrative. So I would highly suggest you read that book, because it actually is a pretty good book. I'm not a big fan of getting all your information out of books, but generally speaking, I'm sure that there's errors in this book, but directionally, it's actually one of the best books or the only book on the Radin murder that makes sense. And of course, Bill Menser was convicted of this murder, and so was Laney Jacobs. So all of this was done in a real court of law with real defendants, with real evidence. And Son of Sam was never brought up once in any of these proceedings. So, of course, Menser, right? The elusive Bill Menser. He's been called the Zodiac Killer. He was the killer of Freund. He was the Friends of Manson. He was Manson 2. This guy was the occult superstar and the ultimate evil. Another link between the principals in the case. Now, he's talking about Manson here. This is, again, from Program to Kill. Another link between the principals in this case were provided by singer Mama Cass Elliot. Victims Wojtek Frykowski and Jay Seberings, who had a history of sadism, were both part of Cass's clique, as were Manson and some of his followers. Victim Abigail Folger may have been as well. Folger had also been friends for a time with Charles Manson himself, as well as with convicted Cotton Club killer Bill Menser. So now, of course, the Manson, this is how Maury Terry himself connected Manson to Son of Sam through this cat, Bill Menser. The entire thesis of and basis of Maury Terry's nationwide cult theory, the hinge of that thesis is Bill the Hinge Menser. Without Bill Menser, you don't have the connections, such as they are connections, between Manson and Son of Sam. Now, they don't actually exist in the real world. They never did. Maury has a great penchant for blaming people who are convicted of crimes and are safely in jail and can't sue him, and then he uses their names in pretty bad ways to convict them of other crimes that they had nothing to do with. But Menser, of course, was the killer and the ultimate evil of Christine Freund. So this is from the epilogue. Christine Freund. This is Berkowitz talking. I believe there was a motive to this, but I don't know what it was, Berkowitz revealed, explaining that, quote, at least 5 conspirators were present that night. Now, I would suggest that you guys watch our series on Freund, because we are actually at the site of the shooting. Please, someone tell me why a hit team of assassins would go to the middle of Station Square and kill somebody in very public view, with tons of witnesses looking down. I mean, why wouldn't they choose another location? It makes no sense. It falls flat on its face just for that. But let's continue reading. It was different because they brought someone in from out of town to do it, he said of the trigger man. Berkowitz later acknowledged Manson, too, was the shooter. He added, quote, there was another guy with him when he came to New York, and that person was also out there that night, unquote. And they did use a red car in this shooting. This red auto, which has now been traced to a close friend of Berkowitz, was observed by a witness at the scene. Berkowitz also alleges that it was Manson, too, who bragged about intimate details of Arliss Perry's murder at a meeting house in the Bronx. This guy had a photo of Arliss, and that's how I knew what she looked like, he explained. I later showed Berkowitz 2 pictures of Arliss. He identified the one. All right. Later off camera, I asked Berkowitz if Bill Menser was Manson, too. Quote, I can't talk about that, he answered, but I will say that I heard this guy later got into some big trouble. So, again, mind steering. Maury Terry was the master of mind steering, and Dave McGowan was his disciple. Okay, so this is not proof of anything. This is just Berkowitz saying, I can't talk about that, but I'll say I heard this guy got later into some big trouble, and so Bill Menser later got into big trouble, therefore it was Bill Menser. I mean, this is ridiculous. So this is important here. Quote, they did use a red car in this shooting. This red auto, which has now been traced to a close friend of Berkowitz, was observed by a witness at the scene. Now you have Maury's words here. He is saying that there was a red auto that Manson 2 was in that was traced to the owner of the owner was traced to be a friend of Berkowitz and was observed by a witness of the scene. Now, I and John Catalano and Book Club Warrior 22, we have studied every page of every police report that exists in the Freund shooting. This is the only reference to a red auto. The assigned in company with Detective Pilkar did interview above subject at her residence 2240 hour. She stated that on the night of occurrence, she was awakened by the sound of gunfire. She looked out her bedroom window, which faces Station Plaza, and saw a man enter a maroon auto, which was parked directly across the street from her window facing west, and then said auto drove off. She was unable to offer anything further. So this is the only reference to a red auto. It's maroon, first of all. She wasn't able to offer anything. They didn't get a license plate number. They didn't get a description of the man, but all of a sudden in the Ultimate Evil epilogue, they did use a red car in this shooting. This red auto, which has now been traced to a close friend of Berkowitz, was observed by a witness at the scene. How could they trace this auto to a close friend of Berkowitz when the police report says that nothing? This was probably a person like the yellow Volkswagen in Brooklyn that heard a gunshot, got the hell into his car, and drove out of there pretty quickly, which would be what you would do, by the way, if you were around, if you heard gunfire and you had access to a car. You would get into that car as fast as you could and drive away, or you'd run away. It's just the normal, natural reaction of humans when they hear gunshots. So here I am showing you again. Dave McGowan uses Maury's premise, repeats the game of telephone, says Bill Menser was connected to Son of Sam, and that he drove the red auto. And here I am showing you the only police report that exists in the real world of the red auto and showing you how Maury lied. I don't understand how people can see this and not see it at the same time. It's actually mind-boggling to me. They call me a liar. How am I lying to you? I'm actually just doing kind of what McGowan did, but for real. I'm taking research and I'm presenting it to you in the only way that it can be interpreted. I'm showing you Maury's words in the police report. I encourage people to go out and fact check me, and go study the police reports. Please educate yourself on Son of Sam. If you think that because you have a list of the members of the 22 disciples of hell that somehow or other you cracked the case, you're sorely mistaken. You've just begun the process of realizing, you don't know it yet, but anyone who is looking at a list of 22, you've actually just begun the process There, I said the process. You've just begun that process of becoming a believer in our work. You just don't know it yet. Now I got Maxie here next to me. He may be getting a little, what I could say, bootsy, a little needy for attention, but that's good because now we're going to hear from a primary source, a person who actually knows Bill Menser and who discussed with me this particular topic in great detail. Let's take a listen to Nicholas Dreck.
Okay, I assume most people who are watching this know, uh, but I'll repeat it in case this is shown on Pluto or some alien civilization
Please.
when humanity has died out, if they don't know what ultimate evil said. Maury Terry, one of his main points is that after Charlie was convicted and imprisoned, then there was a Manson 2, which is already laughable and ludicrous idea, and the idea being Manson 2 being another mind controlling cult leader. But Charlie himself never was even a mind controlling cult leader.
Right.
He was an ordinary crook. That's what he was. He was a lifelong criminal whose only thought, as far as crime, was financial gain, just like every other person in the underworld. He had no occult, whatever spiritual ideas Charlie had, and he did have them, they were irrelevant to the crimes. That's what people can't get.
Right.
So Maury Terry proposes that there was and never gives any proof of why does he call this person Manson 2.
None.
Where did that name come from?
Well, if you read his book, which I have an excerpt of here, I found support for the account. Now here he is connecting Menser to Manson.
Right.
I was with them on an occasion, said the source, who was an undercover operative for the FBI. So here's Maury Terry doing the old Maury Terry shuffle, which is he speaks to all these undercover operatives. He doesn't name names.
Right.
He just says
Right.
the source wasn't an FBI agent, but was recruited by the Bureau, and Folger knew Menser. So right here is where he brings it in. He says that Folger and Menser were like best friends, and somehow or other, then he connects it to, yeah. So go into this a little bit more, because this is one of the last remaining pillars of the ultimate evil.
Yes, I think it's important that we look at this in forensic detail and not let people get away with this kind of sloppy thinking. Now, look, the fact is, to talk about these things, there are people who say, I've had it happen all the time. I'll find a very good source of information. I'll track them down. I'll talk to them. And they'll say, all right, I'll tell you this, but you cannot reveal my name. And I protect that. The fact is, I'm not going to snitch on people who've given me information. And, I'd go to jail rather than say, this is who said that. And I rely on gaining the trust and confidence of people who say, I'll give you this information, but please don't quote me. Or some people said, you can quote me, but quote me after I'm dead. And I have done that. So, if there are people, let me tell you, people are still frightened today, 53, 54 years later. I have tracked people down who I know have inside information, and they do not want to talk about it. They are terrified to this day, which tells you how much is being covered up. So, there are legitimate news sources that just say a reliable source, and it's true. But Maury Terry, the information the whole book can't be that. Whoever said, who is it that said that he was ever called Manson 2? Where does that idea even come from that you hear? And people have picked this up by osmosis. Oh yeah, there was a Manson 2. There is absolutely no evidence that anyone ever called him Manson 2. But let me tell you, he was and is a real person. He's sitting in prison right now. I've spoken to people who know him very well, and he corresponded with me to make some things clear, because he doesn't deny that he was involved in the murder of Roy Radin. I should point that out.
Right.
He admits that he was present at the murder. I'm not going to get into the whole details of the Cotton Club murder, but obviously that does connect to the Manson crimes or the Watson Kasabian crimes, and that Robert Evans, Roman Polanski's friend and patron, and J.C. Brink's friend and Sharon Tate's friend, was revealed to be a cocaine dealer who was financing money with drug deals and cocaine going to Colombia through Lanny Jacobs, this
Right.
drug
Right.
dealer. So it actually is very relevant. And Robert Evans was convicted of selling cocaine, and although now I have to point out, Metzner denies that Bob Evans ordered this hit. He says it was Laney Jacobs alone. And just so your viewers know, and I've gone into detail on this, though I don't get into it in the Manson file because that would be a whole other chapter.
Right.
I probably will write about it or include this in a documentary in the future. According to what he claims, Roy Radin owed money and they went to shake him down, and his associate killed him, lost his temper. He was a very temperamental, hot-headed guy, his
Right.
partner. And these people, Metzner had met a bunch of people who were the bodyguards of Larry Flint of Hustler magazine, and they were basically thugs. They were connected to the underworld. Like a lot of security people are very shady, and they were not very well vetted or screened. So the people working for Larry Flint were, thugs. And so Lanny Jacobs sent. This is what is claimed. I don't know that it's true, of course.
Right.
But that they went to shake him down for money, and that his crime partner went too far, lost his temper, and killed him. So now the things that you have to understand about him is he is in no way interested in the occult whatsoever. And you should
Right.
know, people don't think these are real people. He is very aware of Maury Terry's bullshit, and he hates Maury Terry. And he's a
Interesting.
he admits that he's a criminal. He doesn't deny he was there. He did other crimes. He did other major crimes. But he's a very conservative Republican. He is a veteran of the armed forces. He was in Vietnam in 1968, doing very dangerous work. He's a soldier. Uh, yes, he is a hitman, but he is not in any way, shape, or form an occult believer. He hates that kind of thing.
Right. Well, that's what.
He's an old school Nixonite Republican.
So,
Um,
so just for people who don't know, Maury Terry has this guy William Menser, and let me get his picture back up again. He
yeah,
has him as this character in the Ultimate Evil, who is called Manson 2, who
right,
came into New York City to kill Christine Freund and the Son of Sam attacks, and was
right,
also involved in the Arliss Perry murder in Stanford, Palo Alto, California, Stanford University,
right, right.
and
Which has
offers
been
no
proven to
proof.
be absolute, as you know, and I'm sure your
Right.
viewers know, total nonsense.
Total
Absolutely
nonsense.
not true. Yeah,
So this is how Maury Terry in The Ultimate Evil connects Manson and the whole Cielo Drive and the process with Son of Sam. He does it through the vehicle of this guy Menser. And
right.
I thought
Who,
I
who
thought that
was who was not in Los Angeles at the time all of this was happening. He was in Vietnam. He was a conservative, Republican, gung ho, American loving soldier who was absolutely not a hippie, not interested in hippies, doesn't like Charles Manson, and is deeply. And Berkowitz wrote to him, and he didn't even open his letters. He didn't want anything to do
really,
with all of this. Yes, Berkowitz actually wrote to him in prison, and probably trying to recruit him into this con that the narcissistic sociopath Berkowitz was trying to drag
Berkowitz,
people into.
you have
I mean,
Berkowitz pegged so well. So that's basically the excerpts from the Nicholas Schreck interview, which you should go check out. It's almost at 10,000 views right now, one of our most popular videos. And there you have a primary source, a person who actually knew Bill Menser. This is the only place on the entire web where you're going to hear from somebody who actually knew Bill Menser. Reading a newspaper report about Bill Menser, who's not telling you what Maury Terry wrote about Bill Menser. You're actually getting a firsthand report, and it's the truth is the guy was a conservative Republican, never heard of David never heard of never was involved with Son of Sam or Manson, despite what Maury Terry wrote, and then what later David McGowan wrote, because again, garbage in, garbage out. He got all his material from Maury Terry, and which is the main premise. And of course, here's Steve Steves, who says, Nicholas, I'll laugh my ass off. A leather daddy cut his ear off outside a gay bar when he was dressed like a Nazi. He's the one that is so full of crap. Well, I don't know what to tell you, Steve. I mean, Steve continues to write, I cannot take this guy seriously knowing the truth. All right, well, Steve, it sounds like you know the truth, and everyone else is lying. Even though we showed you actual proof today and showed you that Maury Terry made stuff up, and that Dave McGowan got all his information from Maury Terry, who made it all up, and all that kind of stuff. So if you want to continue to believe what you believe, hey, there's really not much I can do. I wish that I could convince people, because I just consider all this stuff to be logical, and that if you have a rational, intelligent modicum of intelligence, and you're a rational person who is actually interested in truth and not sticking to your team, I can't see how this doesn't penetrate. But the fact is, I've been doing this for 2 years, and I still have people coming back to me saying, Manny, the Queen's DA said it was a cult, and the sketches all look different. I mean, it's like here's should be one of my rules. In order to actually speak to me, you should watch all my videos first, and then we can talk. All right. So anyway, that's the end of our presentation today. I just want to see if there's any good comments. I saw that Ralph Dude had some good ones. Give me a second here. Yeah, hold on. Ralph Dude had a couple that I wanted to put up, but I'm not seeing them now. Give me a second. Sorry, guys. They were really good. So I wanted to actually put them up. Okay, so hold on, because Ralph Dude is a very, very good. Okay, so let's listen. Let's take Ralph Dude's points. So random point: conspiracy people always say Phoenix program in Vietnam involved tons of super sick torture and murder terror, but never offer proof or real evidence. Right? Exactly. I could say Phoenix program as to everything. In fact, I have. We talked about the Phoenix program in Son of Sam, about how Son of Sam was the Phoenix program brought back to the United States by Dr. Albert Laverne. This was when we were cult heads, and we were actually doing what I tell you not to do, which was do your research from innuendos and discredited true crime writers. The actual historical evidence of the program is basically a standard kill capture campaign against Viet Cong, and the dirty work was done by South Vietnam. I'll take your word for it, Ralph. I've never studied Operation Phoenix, never seen a shred of evidence that, as McGowan claims, the Phoenix program involved Americans going around purposely torturing and mutilating, let alone any real evidence that American serial killers were involved, as McGowan claims. Right, exactly. He says in this book that Berkowitz was an MK Ultra patsy. I mean, give me a break. So let me see if there's any other comments here. Okay. I just want to read any negative comments. I always am curious to see how people justify their belief in things like in things like Program to Kill. But anyway, I don't see anything in either case. So there was another guy here, Kill the Stereotype. Okay, so Kill the Stereotype writes, there are events involving multiple shooters and cover-ups. I haven't read The Ultimate Evil or Program to Kill. However, I wouldn't dismiss from those books, though. Well, if you haven't read them, you can't say whether you would dismiss or not, because you haven't read them. My suggestion would be to read The Ultimate Evil first, because that's where all the information comes from Program to Kill, and then watch our Brooklyn series, watch our Freund series, watch our Boskerichian series, watch our Grubby Hippie hoax, watch Yellow Volkswagen hoax, watch every video we've ever done, which shows you in great detail how Maury Terry lied to us. And I don't want this to be true. Again, I started all this as a Maury Terry fan. I started this to prove the cult theory, not dismiss it. But as an honest researcher and as a person who can't lie to my audience, despite what Neo says, I've actually never lied once to you guys. I just don't lie in my life. It's just not something that I do. I took into account. When I was about 10 years old, there was a public service announcement that said, when you tell one lie, it leads to another. And that actually made sense to me as a 10-year-old. I just didn't want to have to remember lies that I told. So I just made a pact to myself at the age of 10 that from that point on, I would tell the truth with everything. And I never have deviated from that once. So in either case, I mean, maybe little white lies to smooth things over here and there in interpersonal relationships, but certainly never in the course of this video series. But all right, listen, Maxie's starting to go nuts back here. We got our what we needed to do. We needed to get done. We got done. And so basically I need to start paying attention to this guy before he starts tearing up the entire apartment. So listen, everyone out there, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed this takedown of this piece of shit book. And hopefully we did what we set out to do, which was to take Program to Kill and throw it where it belongs, right into the fucking garbage.